we're going to have open contact very soon. Do people not think the ETs are going to get involved in our politics? Of course they will. They're going to get involved in every aspect of our society. The fact that he actually checked in with someone and asked the audience if it was okay for him to say something is the closest he could come to an indication that it's not about what happens that matters. It's what you do with what happens that makes the difference in your life. So
great. What happens between lives? Just a small question. And so the big question that we've received is, as we get introduced to other life forms, is there any guarantee they will all be here to help and support us?
I believe that there are things that have been going on behind the scenes already where they're helping us with some of our technological understanding.
Our mission here at the Heart Coherence Collaborative is to get people in touch with the healing power of the heart.
And we really need your help. Right now, only 1% of viewers subscribe. We are aiming to take that number to 6%.
The reason why we want to do that is the more people that subscribe, the more people in the world can learn the magical practice of heart coherence.
So please help us out. If you ever listened, if you love this message, please just take a moment to subscribe.
Thank you so much.
Welcome everybody to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. We are so excited. We have our friend Darryl Anka back with us again today. Thank you, Darryl.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so after our first interview, we had hundreds of questions come in from your community. So we compiled all those questions. We reached out to your Facebook community, asked anybody if they had any other questions. And we've at this point received thousands of questions from your community. So we've compiled them all into the very best questions. And this is ultimately a collective consciousness interview. So thank you everybody listening who partook in this in one way, shape, or form. We love you and we're honored to represent you here.
Yes, we're so excited. Do you want me to begin?
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So question one is about the formula, which anybody who's familiar with you will know is the formula to follow your highest excitement and manifest things in your life. So the question is, step 4 of the formula is to remain in a positive state no matter what happens. Step 5 is to constantly investigate our belief systems. How do we stay in a positive state if we are looking our fears or negative beliefs in the eye?
Well, you're observing them. You're examining yourself to understand what beliefs you're holding on to. And at the very least, you can look at them somewhat neutrally if you're just exploring the idea. If something comes up where you suddenly feel fear or feel some negativity in that way, that's okay as long as you don't wallow in it, you don't dwell on it, you don't judge yourself for it, don't add more negativity to it. It's about going through the process of asking yourself, why am I feeling this? Because you understand how the mechanism works, that it is your belief about something being true about yourself in a certain circumstance that generates the feeling. So in a sense, it's a kind of a paradoxical thing of going, okay, I'm following my passion, I'm feeling my excitement, and then this thing crops up that is a belief that's been revealed to me that I've been holding on to unconsciously, and it changes the feeling. And that's okay, because you need to look at it as finding things that are not your preference and not representative of the vibration of your excitement is part of your excitement. Because to find them means you can deal with them and let them go. Otherwise, they remain unconscious and they keep cropping up. And then you have to deal with it over and over and over again. So it's okay to stay in a positive state while you're feeling something maybe negative, because the positive state in this case simply means be okay that you felt it and work with it to find out why you're holding on to it and let it go, rather than going into a deeper negative state of judging yourself for having felt it or thinking something's wrong and so on and so forth. So staying in a positive state in that circumstance simply means work with what comes up, don't run away from it.
Mm.
Great. What happens between lives? Just a small question, no big
5
deal.
words or less. Well, we have free will as spirits, and my understanding is that when we transition back into spirit, you will be guided by your guides. You will meet the team that you have that has been helping you through life, your soul family, your spirit guides, and members of the angelic realm, whoever you are connected to. You will go through some kind of life review to allow yourself to learn the lessons, to see the lessons, to see the effects of the choices you made while you were having a life, effects that may have interacted with other people, choices you made that may have caused certain things to happen. Again, not a punishment, not a judgment, just an observation of, I did this and maybe I could have done it differently because it created this or caused this to happen. That's not what I preferred, or it is what I preferred. So again, you just kind of absorb all that in the life review. You experience it as if it's actually happening to you. And in other words, if you did something that made someone else feel a certain way, because now there's no barrier in non-physical reality, no space-time barrier, you could actually experience the consequences of your actions from the perspective of the person that was affected by them. And that can literally be tens, hundreds, thousands of people. So, but again, time there is not what it is here. So relative in Earth time, it may seem like the life review may take months or years, but in spirit, it actually happens in a flash. But you will see and feel everything that happened in the life, and you will be able to use that to add to your soul's knowledge, your soul's growth, to be able to then confer with your team for the next thing you would like to do to help your soul continue to expand, to grow, and continue to experience whatever it is you prefer to experience. So a lot of free will, conference with your team, a lot of choices are made, and then you choose to experience the next thing. I mean, that doesn't mean you have to leave spirit right away. You can hang out, you can experience a lot of things in spirit, other dimensions, what have you. But you all kind of decide what's the next best thing for you, just like you help others decide what's the next best thing for them as well. All of this goes on. You will meet the people that you knew in physical reality. You will reconnect with them, reunite with them, including animals and so on and so forth. So again, it's kind of like going home. This is your natural state. Physical reality is just sort of a dream projection that's happening within your soul. So you become your full soul again. You can really look and observe up and down the timeline of your life. You can look and observe into other times and other lives. You can really decide and choose from a whole array of things as to what it is that you would be interested in doing next. That's sort of an encapsulation.
That was so good. I had heard a long time ago, just once, the idea that you would feel all the feelings that you made other people feel during your lifetime. And I've never heard anybody say that again.
Yeah, because again, we're all connected, and it's only in physical reality that we create the illusion of a separation that prevents us from experiencing all of that unless we're just super highly empathic, which some people are. But in spirit, you are totally empathic and telepathic. So anything that was an energy that was created is felt by you and experienced by you as if it's happening to you. So there's kind of like a delay mechanism in physical reality that then sort of piles up when you go back into spirit, so that you relive that all again immediately as if everything that anyone else was affected by is happening to you. So you can identify strongly from their point of view. It's kind of like the spiritual version of walk a mile in my shoes. Again, because we are all connected. So you get to feel that connection and experience things from the point of view of everyone else that was affected. Now, I'm Sure, there might be different degrees of that. In other words, there might be a very big difference between having done something unconsciously, unintentionally, and another person choosing to react, perhaps negatively to it, not your intention. That may be experienced very differently than if you actually did something harmful to another person with intention. That might be felt in a slightly more impactful way. But nevertheless, you will experience it. But again, I know it's hard for us to imagine, but from the spirit point of view, none of it comes with the same kind of emotionality that we have in physical reality. You relate to it, you go through the experience, even with the feelings, but it's almost a little bit detached, like you're sort of watching a movie. And so the idea is you get to experience all of that, but kind of more in the same way that you might go through a daydream or watch a movie and you kind of feel things as you go along, but in the back of your mind, this is not really happening to you now in real time, but you get to feel it enough to learn the lessons from it that you need to learn so that you can make different choices perhaps the next time.
That might be the most mind-blowing interview answer we've ever had. So if I'm dazing off in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be pondering that question. So.
Pondering the space between.
Yeah.
Next, could you elaborate on the concept of everything happens for a reason and the idea that souls wanted to go through different life experiences for growth, particularly in the context of bereaved parents or people that experience extreme tragedy?
Yeah, I know this is really tough for people to understand and tough to take. But souls do create a life path. All life paths are intertwined and interconnected, and they serve a multitude of purposes. I mean, the first thing we have to remember is that from the point of view of the soul, this is a temporary experience. In a sense, from the soul's point of view, in the way that we typically mean this in physical reality, this physical experience isn't real. It's more like acting out in a play. And so certain things can be chosen that might seem extremely limiting, extremely confusing, extremely unfair or tragic in physical terms. But like when you're watching a play and you see, the hero and the villain and tragedy occurs and stuff like that. But then the play is over and the two actors go out and have a beer and have a laugh. So the idea is that from the soul's perspective, there are reasons why all of these things are chosen. For example, someone might choose to experience what we would call a very limiting sort of condition, a disease or something like that, that seems very stressful for them. But the idea is doctors, scientists that may then examine that condition can perhaps find information and cures and understandings about how life works by examining the genetics, by examining the cells. It increases our knowledge. So a lot of times, very advanced souls will truly take on themselves these kinds of conditions to help humanity advance and evolve and learn things they otherwise wouldn't learn if they hadn't been exposed to those conditions. The soul, again, chooses its life path, it chooses its entry point, it chooses its exit point, generally speaking. So even when someone seems to die young very tragically, there is still a purpose for the soul to experience that limited amount of physical reality in the sense that that's all they need. And they've made an agreement with their family on a spirit level to do that. And again, it serves a multitude of purposes. You have to kind of take it on a case by case basis. You can't necessarily generalize all of it. But let's say, a child dies young, the parents are bereaved, and I can understand that. And it's okay to feel those emotions. But the idea is that eventually, it may actually help the parents start to try and reach out to the spirit of the child, which could increase their connection to their awareness of spirit. And the child can still help them. It's not a child anymore. It's back to its full self as a spiritual being. And it may have chosen to be, in life temporarily to remind the parents that there's more to life than this, to help them to focus on trying to connect to their child who has died so that they may increase their sense of spirituality. They may get a better sense of them, of the continuum of life. Or again, there could be several dozen other reasons why it may happen the way that it happens. But it is all basically agreed to, it is all acted out, and it can serve any number of purposes. This is why it's so important to really look at every situation to understand, like, okay, well, what are you learning by having experienced this, by having had this happen in your life? You know, where is it focusing you that it otherwise wouldn't focus you? Do you become an activist for trying to cure that disease? Do you become an activist for trying to make sure that children don't die young anymore because your child was killed in a tragedy? So it can serve a number of purposes, again, to help humanity evolve, help them advance, help them live better lives overall. And again, you'll meet everyone back in spirit again anyway. No one is ever truly lost. And you will decide what scenarios to play out again next time, either in physical reality on Earth, somewhere else, or in spirit.
Great. So a lot of comments coming in now with the acknowledgement that ETs are coming soon. And so the big question that we've received is, as we get introduced to other life forms, is there any guarantee they will all be here to help and support us?
Yes, absolutely. There are, of course, negative entities out in the cosmos, but I believe that what's going on here is in some way, shape, or form protected by the ones that have our best interests at heart. There is a lot of reasons for them to do this. They have the ability to keep anyone that doesn't have our best interests at heart at bay, so they don't necessarily intervene or interfere with our evolutionary path. The ones that are here for our benefit are connected to us in a number of different ways. They are in many ways truly extensions of our family. So they're very lovingly connected to us. They are very protective of us. And so I don't think that's something we actually have to worry about. Again, you know, the old classic idea, look, if, you know, any of them were really intending harm, they are so powerful, they wouldn't have to wait for open contact to have long ago taken over the planet. So, you know, it doesn't really make logical sense that they would just be waiting and waiting and waiting for millennia and then just one day go, okay, we're just going to take over and we're going to, you know, enslave all of you, or, you know, turn you all into lunch. So, yeah, it's those are really just science fiction scenarios that don't, you know, that are okay as stories, but they don't really take into account the understanding of what it takes for these kinds of extraterrestrial beings to exist in the cosmos, and how advanced a lot of them are, what a much deeper understanding they have of their connection to life, their connection to source, their connection to light and love, and how the universe actually operates. And it just really makes no sense for an extraterrestrial that's that advanced to give in to the idea of negativity and fear, you know, because they have so many unlimited resources, so much unlimited access to everything out there, that, you know, for them to be petty enough to come down to one little planet and go, well, now, you know, we're going to take all of your, you know, water, we're going to do this, we're going to do this to you. It would limit them in such a weird way, you know, by connecting to us in that negative way, that it would actually prevent them from living the more advanced and expanded realities that they experience in their own worlds. So it just doesn't make sense to them to in any way, shape, or form be harmful. You see, this is part of what we, let's say, don't understand about true intelligence. True intelligence operates in whole systems. They see things holistically. They would never seek to, in any way, shape, or form, limit or damage or eliminate a part of the whole system of existence, because that would actually deprive them of something too, because they're part of a whole system. It's only humanity and, similar limited beings that would think in a compartmentalized way, that would not understand how everything is interrelated and interconnected. It's what we do on Earth by thinking, okay, we can destroy this entire ecosystem and we'll all be okay because it's not connected to us, because it's over there. That's not the way true intelligence understands existence. Everything is interwoven, everything is interconnected. You pull one thread, the whole tapestry comes unraveled. So an ET that has higher intelligence is never going to pull that thread, because they would lose the rest of the tapestry as well. So no, we don't have to worry about them being negative or evil or harmful to us.
That's awesome.
What is the difference between knowing and believing?
Knowing is something you do that is in your bones. It's you don't even question it, you don't even ask. It's synonymous with actions and behavior. So in other words, if I asked you to stand up and walk around, you wouldn't sit there and go, let's see now, do I believe I can stand up? Do I believe I can walk? You know you can stand. You know you can walk. So you wouldn't have to ponder or wonder or think about it. You would literally take the action. You'd go, yes, and you would stand and you'd walk around if I asked you, can you do that? Because you know you can. So knowing is synonymous with action. What you do shows you what you know to be true. Whereas beliefs do create your physical reality experience through the actions that you take, because they get to a point where it's so ingrained, it becomes, at least temporarily, a knowing and creates your reality experience. But that can be positive, negative, it can be in any direction. So beliefs act like the blueprints for what you ultimately reinforce that you come to know to be true for you, whether it is positive, negative, or neutral. So knowing is the stronger version of the repetition of believing in something so much for so long that it just becomes ingrained in all of your actions. You just know how to do this. You know what this is. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to question it. But the thing to understand is that can, as I said, be positive or negative or neutral. So a lot of people know something to be true that could be completely contradictory to what other people know to be true for themselves as well. So it's just that different level of, it's in your bones, it's in your behavior, as opposed to something that's still somewhat hypothetical.
It's very interesting, the ETs coming in the next 5 years at the same time that AI is becoming so prevalent. Will there be any sort of interaction or help from ETs to keep AI in a good place in its involvement?
Yes, I believe that there are things that have been going on behind the scenes already where they're helping us with some of our technological understanding. And that's one of the reasons I think that open contact can actually seem to be happening so soon and so quickly, is that it's not that it's all of a sudden just starting. It's that it's been going on for quite some time behind the scenes. And this is the culmination of what's been going on behind the scenes, where it can finally be revealed. It's reached that point. So I think they have been guiding us in a number of ways with several different things, not just technologically. But yes, they're going to be able to more openly, I think, assist us and guiding us and say, this is what works, this doesn't really work, so that we're, again, on a more positive, constructive path for humanity. They're helping us evolve, helping us advance in a way that works for us, in a way that we can handle. So definitely. So, and one of the things I think has been, Bashar has said, and actually I've heard now repeated by a couple of other psychic mediums, is that one of the gifts that ETs are going to be giving us when they come, and I don't mean necessarily on day one, but at some point after open contact occurs, is they're going to give us records, holographic records of our entire history that they've been recording for millennia. So, we'll get to actually see, what did Atlantis look like? What actually happened in ancient Rome? What did Jesus look like? What did Buddha, what was Buddha really talking about? All these kinds of things, because they have all of this and they will present it to us as a gift. So it helps orient us, it helps us understand where we've come from, what we've created our reality to be, where we can go from here. So that type of technology will be given to us. I'm sure other forms will be given to us, but also a lot of the idea of suggestions for how to manage the planet in a positive way for all of humanity, not only technologically, but sociologically, ecologically, spiritually, politically, economically. All these things are part of the social engineering of the advancement and evolution of humanity that ETs have been through and have been observing in us for so long that they know what we need to make things work. So I think they'll be helping to instruct us on all of those things, but at the same time, they'll be letting us learn these things in our own way at our own pace. And therefore, we're kind of looking at a multi-decade reset of humanity over time, so that we can absorb the idea of getting used to the fact that extraterrestrials are here. We can, at our own comfortable pace, absorb what they're teaching us, absorb the technological advances they're giving to us. I do think some of that will involve things like free energy, stuff like that, so that we can stop polluting, the earth and things like that, because that way we get to maintain it and continue on from there. So yeah, they will, I think, give us a lot of information that'll be very valuable for us and very beneficial for us.
Wow. In a weird way, it's like we are going from being the alpha, the humans of the planet, to being like, okay, we got AI, ETs, and now we're here learning, kind of like,
Yeah, well, it's taking our place in the galactic family. I mean, yes, they're very advanced, but they don't want us to look at them as more superior than us. We're learning, we're still powerful spirits, just like they are. We may have forgotten who we are, but they're here to remind us who we are so that we can take our place in the cosmic family as equals. And, just because we don't have the same, technological knowledge that they do, or sociological experience that they do, doesn't mean we don't have that potential. And they see that in us, and they're willing to give us or share, what they've learned in their reality with us, so that we can advance and grow in ways that are positive and constructive for everyone. So yeah, we don't have to really look at it as, okay, now they're the alpha and we're subservient, but it's really just kind of like having, let's say a big brother or a big sister come in and go, I've walked this path. Here's what you may encounter on that path, and here's how I handled it. And so you can think about how you may want to handle it in a more positive way. So I would look at it more like that than all of a sudden saying, well, now we're like bending the knee to these beings.
provides a lot of hope.
That's not
Yeah,
what they want.
the answer made us feel really good. Like, it's very hopeful.
That's actually the most exciting thing, the idea of holographic records. I've never felt so excited. Like, I think every human loves to know, loves the unsolved mystery. So I would love to actually.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating. I mean, as much as we've learned, I would love to actually see what a dinosaur looked like.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
We're probably so wrong about so many things, and it would be so cool to find out how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They come down and we give them like a bag of gold as a gift. And they're like, here's records to everything that's ever happened anywhere and anytime and any place.
For the lame
Thank you very
brother and
much.
sister.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. The next couple questions are about love,
Oh.
which we love here at the Coherence Collaborative. How do I succeed in perceiving everything and everyone as love in each and every moment, so that my created reality turns into heaven on earth?
Well, the universe basically operates on two principles. It operates on love or fear, and fear, both. It's the polarity that exists, the positive, the negative, the light, the dark. The idea is you understand that we are made of light. We are essentially beings of love. Even when people express negativity, for the most part, it's simply because they've learned that that's the way you make connections. Everyone is trying to make a connection. Now, they may not have been given the positive and constructive tools to do so, but in the negativity that they express, they're still trying to reach out and make a connection, which is the whole idea of love. It's the thing that connects us to source. It's that connective tissue. It's that connective vibration that lets everyone know they are a part of this greater thing. This unconditional love is the vibrational frequency of existence itself. So the idea is that even fear is an expression in some ways, maybe a distorted expression of love, but it's still an expression of trying to connect, but in the only way that people know how, because they haven't necessarily been taught that they are self-empowered beings connected to source. So they may feel abandoned, they may feel cut off, they may feel disconnected, and they may resent that and be angry about that or be sad about that. And therefore, they will reach out in the only ways they've been taught to do so. They don't necessarily have the complete understanding or the complete toolkit, but they're doing the best they can. So understanding that when people come from that perspective, looking at them as you would kind of look at as a child that's still learning, that doesn't have all the answers, with compassion and understanding, can help you have that perspective where you can stay in the love vibration. It doesn't mean that you accept everything everyone does. You don't just turn into a jellyfish and say, do anything you want to me. But the idea is you can come from a compassionate, loving place going, I understand that you're learning a lesson. I understand that this is your life path to go through this. I understand you may not have all of the options that could be available to you. And I can maybe share some ideas with you that would give you other options that would allow you to become a more constructive, positive, loving being. And so coming from that place, that vibration is what at least gives them the option to know that there are other options. Whereas if you just succumb to the idea of your own negativity, then all you're doing is adding to the misery that they're already experiencing. And that doesn't help you, it doesn't help them, it doesn't help anyone. So it's just a more constructive place to stay in that loving vibration, because at least you give them a chance to also match that frequency instead of you going into judgment and then matching that negative frequency that you are saying you don't prefer in your life anyway. So why would you choose to go in that direction? Even if someone doesn't change, at least you're giving them the opportunity to do so by being a living example of the kind of energy and compassion and love that they could allow themselves to feel if they're willing. And who knows how impactful that may be for them, whether it's impactful today, tomorrow, 10 years from now, or even at the end of their life. So be that positive example, not only for your own benefit, because it feels better, but also to at least give other people a chance to see in you an example of how it could be for them too.
Yeah, that's reminding me of, I forgot this and haven't thought about it for a long time, but I think it's a Marianne Williamson quote that every action is either love or a call for love.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yes.
basically a way to say the same thing that you're saying.
Yeah, we are all trying to get home. It's just that we don't always have all the road signs we need. We don't always have the full map. And so some people are kind of like stumbling around in the dark. So shine a light for them, illuminate the path. Whether they accept it or not is none of your business, but at least give them the flashlight.
Mm.
Great. I have a couple personal questions for Bashar that you'll be able to answer, but you are, well, basically, when you leave this earth, will Bashar be going to another human, I guess is the question. No.
No. Well, no, not only there just would be no reason to, first of all, because if we have open contact, hybrids, ETs, and what have you will literally be here being able to communicate with us face to face. So that in that sense, channeling will really no longer be necessary,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
Because we can just talk to them.
And then the other question was just before Bashar, you had mentioned in our last interview that you had a lady, a feminine energy come to you before Bashar came to you. And people seemed really interested in that energy. Did that entity have a name? Could you tell us a little bit more about her?
Yeah, we called her anima, which is actually a word that simply means a female energy coming through a man, just as the counterpart animus is a male energy coming through a woman. Again, because they don't have names, and Bashar isn't Bashar's name, it's an Arabic word that simply it means messenger. It describes what he's doing. Anima was the word that was chosen to simply represent the idea that I'm a man, but I'm expressing a female energy when she connects with me. Therefore, that word was used. She is a member of Bashar's society. He is a first contact specialist. She is a social engineer. So after open contact is made, after the job of the first contact specialists is done, so to speak, or at least the first phase of it is done, then the social engineers from their society come in, and they're the ones I talked about before. They're saying, okay, here's how we manage our world. Here's how you could help manage your world in a more beneficial way for everyone. Here's the different systems you could need. Here's how you could operate this and operate that. So she's part of the social engineers that would come in the next phase after open contact to help us understand the whole concept of planetary management.
Nice.
Oh, we need a new planetary manager.
Yeah.
I've always had this very hopeful feeling that I don't know how it'll work, but I don't think we're all gonna just blow up and die. And
No.
it's nice to hear a structure of that. We would get some help. I mean, my best hope was that maybe we just have smart people who would eventually figure out how to clean the ocean and do everything.
Makes me
Well,
think.
yeah, and there are people that are working on that who are very smart. And as I said before, there are certain things going on behind the scenes where some of those people, not everyone, some of those people are actually getting help from ETs to push those technologies forward.
Yeah, we did have a specific question come in. What role do ETs play in repairing and balancing Earth's grid lines currently?
Yeah, Bashar's talked about this as his ship is over the vortex in Sedona, where he adds his vibrational energy to that vortex to kind of help mitigate anything that might go too far in one direction or another, so that it kind of becomes smoother. Our transitions become, less destructive or less catastrophic, or, just a little bit allowing us to get the reflections we need in a way that we can handle them a little bit more easily. So they're kind of adding their energy to the mix of our energy, our grid, to allow us a little bit of a smoother ride in the transformation and transitions that we're making as we advance and as we evolve. So yeah, they are definitely adding their energy to this process to help make it easier for us. Again, we can refuse to match that vibration, but they're offering it to us, and they definitely do put it out in the energy grid of the Earth. And it's especially felt in a lot of the vortices that are around the planet.
Nice.
I'm so excited for this big brother. I have a big brother. Shout out to Jake.
We love you, Jake.
We love you. He's building high rises, but I'm very excited about all of this. I'd love an extra big brother, or many.
Or sister.
The second question about love. This person says, I'm guessing that loving myself first would solve it all, but how do you know that you love yourself in the right way? And what does it even mean to love yourself?
Well, first of all, it means you certainly treat yourself kindly with respect. You don't prejudge yourself. You don't judge yourself negatively. You are aware that you may make mistakes, but you don't wallow in it. You understand you are a child of the universe. You are an aspect of all that is. You are learning. You are growing. And you give yourself basically the benefit of the doubt. Now, that doesn't mean you can just, go willy-nilly and do all sorts of horrible things and say, well, it's okay. It's about being a balanced individual. It's about treating yourself with kindness, with love, with respect. It's doing your best and knowing that you're doing your best and knowing that you don't have an intention to harm anyone, including yourself. It's working with yourself to let go of fear-based beliefs, negative beliefs, letting go of the things that really are not your vibrational preference, not what you feel in your heart of hearts and your soul is true for you as on a basic level. You have to start out basically knowing that you are worthy, that you are deserving. That's really the basis of loving yourself. You are here, and by the very fact that you exist, you are worthy, you are deserving. So, because you understand that creation doesn't make mistakes, and if you exist, existence must need you to exist because there's nothing superfluous about existence. There's nothing extra. It is exactly what it needs to be. So if you exist, you're part of it. That means you deserve your existence. It needs you to exist. Otherwise, you wouldn't exist. So you have to start out from that basic understanding that you are worthy of your existence, not doubting that particular part of yourself. That's the first step toward loving yourself is you do belong, you do count, you do matter. And then from that sense of indestructible power, that place of indestructibility, because you exist and you always will in some way, shape, or form, then you can also reach out to others. If you really aren't empowering yourself, if you really don't feel worthy, then you really can't help anyone else. So yes, you do have to help yourself first. You can do it as you're helping other people, and sometimes helping other people will actually allow you to feel more deserving and more worthy. That's why Bashar often suggests to people to volunteer for things and help other people because it sort of takes you out of your own head where you might get all that negative chatter. And when you start learning to actually be of assistance to others, to serve others, to help others in positive ways, that can actually put you in a better state to start feeling like, okay, I'm actually a good person. I actually can make a difference. I actually can be of assistance, and therefore I should give myself the same credit, the same ability to know that, as I think they're worthy of my help, then I'm worthy of help from the universe too. And you're serving the whole system so the whole system can serve you instead of service just to self, which then kind of cuts you off from the whole system being capable of giving you what you need. So anytime you are serving the whole system, you will be served because you're part of the whole system and you don't cut yourself off from it by thinking that you are undeserving of help, undeserving or unworthy of being connected and receiving what you need. So I think it starts with that. It starts with knowing your own worth, knowing your own deservability, and that's just proven by the fact that you exist. Because if you weren't needed by existence, trust me, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't exist at all.
Love that. Is there power in group meditations? We have so many collective meditations going on, but can they actually make a difference on the energy of the earth?
Of course. We are creating our reality, and anytime a number of people get together with the same wavelength, the same intention, the same idea, it can magnify, it can amplify. So absolutely, because again, love is about connection, and connection expands things. Connection is a particular frequency, and therefore, anytime more than two people connect, you are amplifying and magnifying the idea of that connection. You're tapping into a bigger part of the whole system anytime that you do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So we have some questions where people are curious about you.
Okay.
Let's find out all the exciting personal details. This person wonders how you deal with frustration and if you experience situations that bring up anger.
On rare occasions, I grew up on Earth. I'm still human. Now I'm learning to deal with all of that. I may have had more practice than a lot of people because I get to feel what Bashar's energy feels like and how he deals with things that come up when I'm channeling. I definitely apply a lot of that in my life, and it's absolutely made a difference over time in my life so that I don't really get angry or frustrated anymore. I see things more with curiosity. It's like, oh, why is this happening? This is interesting. Let's see where this goes. Because I know it's happening for a reason. That's kind of the first step of knowing, okay, there's no reason to get angry because that just prevents me from understanding why this is going on and how this can serve me in a positive way. That's, again, the fourth step of the formula is stay in a positive state so that no matter what happens, you can get a benefit from it because there is always a way anything can serve double duty, can be positive or negative, or maybe neutral, triple duty. But the idea is that if you don't stay in that positive state, if you don't approach it with wonder or curiosity, then you don't necessarily see the benefit that could be there for you. So, on the most basic, simplest level, when something happens that may be something you don't objectively prefer, it's not vibrationally compatible with what you prefer in life, who you want to be, it's still there for a reason. So, if you go, okay, if nothing else, experiencing something or seeing or observing something that is what I don't prefer makes it clearer by contrast what I do prefer. And that's a positive way to use what you don't prefer. So a lot of times it's like what people say, it's easier to see a tiny little candle flame when it's surrounded by darkness. So that's using the darkness to see the light more clearly. So stay in curiosity. You understand everything is happening to teach you a lesson, to improve you, to help you grow. And if you approach every situation that way, then you will experience it more positively. And that starts to become more of a habit. You want to experience things that way more and more and more, and not wallow in self-pity or, oh my God, why did this happen? Self-judgment, something must be wrong. I should be farther along than this. I thought I was more spiritual than this, all of that nonsense.
Mhm.
Uh, what happens is what needs to happen. What is going on in the present moment is the most important thing that is going on at that moment, and it needs to be there for some reason. So use it positively, use it up because it's there for you to use. And it really goes back to what Bashar always says. It's not about what happens that matters. It's what you do with what happens that makes the difference in your life. So put out positive energy toward it, you'll get a positive reflection. Put out negative energy toward it, you will only wallow in negativity. It's up to you. You're the one in charge. So you determine how you define what's going on in your life. Again, it doesn't mean you start calling negative things positive things. You can still have the discernment to recognize when something is being created out of negativity and fear, or when something is being created out of love and positivity. You can still recognize that, but you don't have to experience the effect of the negativity if you stay in a positive state. You will always be able to learn something from why it's there or why you're observing it. And a lot of people get confused about the idea of, well, why did I attract this person in my life? Are they reflecting to me issues that I have? That may be true sometimes, but it's not always a one-to-one reflection. When Bashar says everything is a reflection, he doesn't mean that someone that comes into your life that has a lot of negative issues means that you have those same issues. It may mean that the reflection for you in that person coming into your life is that you can help them change. And therefore, that's the reflection, is they've come to you to ask for help, whether they literally ask you for help or not. So at least you give them the option to know that there's some other way to experience their own life in a more positive way. So you have to understand it's not literally like you're seeing the actual reflection in the mirror. It's like, oh, that's a bad person, so I must be a bad person. No, that's nonsense. It's okay, that person is having difficulty, that person is struggling. They're in my life. Okay, number one, sure, check in. Is there something this person is doing, saying, whatever, that I do need to look at within myself to improve myself? If you go through that honest process within yourself and you realize, well, no, I can't really find anything that this person is doing or saying to me that actually is truthful for me, then that must mean they're here so I may be able to help them in some way, shape, or form. It's not about me, it's about them. So again, you have to have that discernment.
If duality exists, considering good and bad, or love and hate, or dark and light, how can a world ascend to one extreme without the other?
Anytime you expand your consciousness, anytime you expand your bandwidth, your ability to perceive more and more and more of creation, of existence, you not only perceive more light, you do perceive more darkness. But just because you are more aware of it doesn't mean you have to experience it. It's the very act of staying in balance between the two that allows you to choose to experience what you prefer, but you don't invalidate what you don't prefer. You just observe that it's there. Because as you gain more awareness of creation, you gain more awareness of both the positive and the negative, because it's on every level in some way, shape, or form. It may not be experienced the same way on a higher level that it's experienced in physical reality, but it's there because it just permeates everything. Because as I said, existence operates on love or fear. So it's two sides of the same coin. You can't have one side without the other. So as you become more aware of it, just become aware of it. It doesn't mean you have to be afraid that it will happen, it will manifest, or you will choose it unless you have a reason to choose it. So if you stay in the center, stay balanced, stay neutral, you can say, I see all that. It's not what I prefer. I choose this, but I'm not going to invalidate that, because the fact that that exists has brought me to the place where I'm now free to choose this. So you use everything as a stepping stone. You don't invalidate anything, or you can't take the next step. So you don't invalidate the darkness, you use it to your advantage so that you can experience more light.
Hmm. So the second question, in that attitude of curiosity about you,
Mm.
after you channel Bashar, what does your self-care consist of? Do you require rest, or do you need recuperation?
I usually need lunch.
Now everyone
Basically,
knows.
yeah, I mean, it's when I first started, when I wasn't used to his energy for the first couple of years, it did tire me out because I wasn't used to handling that kind of vibration. At a certain point, and this was literally at a single point when I was channeling, I suddenly felt the wave of his energy uplift me. And it was, it's like when you're standing in the ocean, the water's like, up to your chest, and a wave comes along, and you know how it sort of lifts you up off the ground for a second? It was like that. And from that point forward, once I allowed the energy through in a more unimpeded way without restrictions, and I trusted it, it uplifted me so that now when I channel, I'm left with more energy. I'm more balanced. But there is an expenditure in some way of energy, because that's why at the end I'm hungry. So I do need to replenish, but I actually have more balance in terms of the way my energy feels after I do a channeling. Because you're getting into a state that connects you to more of yourself. And so if you allow that state to support you, you actually do feel more energized and more supported, even though in the physical action of going through the channeling may, of course, require you to replenish yourself. But you don't feel it like, oh, I'm exhausted, I'm just a dish rag. You don't feel it that way once you allow the energy to be okay. Once you start matching the frequency, the higher frequency that comes through you, you get used to it. Your nervous system starts to be able to handle it. It becomes a better conductor of that energy, and therefore you retain some of that frequency after you go into that state for quite a while.
What unique abilities might hybrid children have?
Well, they'll certainly be telepathic, absolutely. I'm sure they're going to be extremely intelligent and insightful and intuitive. They may have artistic inclinations. They may have a lot of other creative expressions as well. Um, they will probably, in some ways, be just like a lot of children are, very good teachers. They will be able to tap into a lot of psychic information, the Akashic records, things like that, bring information through for us. among many other things.
Right.
Mm. Can you talk about why there seems to be more and more neurodiverse people and if they have a purpose or a role on Earth?
Again, yeah, absolutely. This again goes back to the idea of souls choosing paths to help humanity evolve. I think when you see neurodivergent people, you're understanding, look, the soul is everything and nothing. It can be anything. And the idea is that physical reality doesn't necessarily have to hinder that anymore. A soul can come down and say, look, I can be this, I can be this, I can be this, I can be this, so that humanity can start accepting that all of that exists within every soul. That potential to be anything exists within every soul. And we don't have to be quite so cut and dried. It's like, this is this, and this is this, and no mixing happens here. So, yeah, okay, that can happen too. You can have this, it's very specific. You can have this, it's very specifically this way. But I think what we're seeing is the blending and balancing of a lot of different energies, male, female, and what have you, in humanity to express itself in any number of ways along a spectrum so that, again, we can start relaxing some of these borders and barriers we have to restricting things to only being one way, one kind of an expression, and nothing else is valid, nothing else is allowed. So now it's about validating all of the ways a soul can express itself. So that's playing out physically in humanity because that's what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing physical expressions of this concept. So we're going to see physical expressions of our physicality expanding too. What does it mean to be a physical entity? It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you are typically male, typically female, as it's been, for in our society for a long time. At least looked at that way. Doesn't mean it actually was that way, but it's been looked at that way. So now I think we're relaxing the idea of our perceptions, our perspectives, and saying, okay, it's all right to be something that's a little bit different, a little bit outside the box, maybe more outside the box, and still be a valid human being that has a lot to offer, that is creative, that is loving, giving, supportive, nurturing, and can be supported and nurtured in their exploration of what it means to be a human being or even just a soul. So I think that's why we're seeing a lot of that today as we're breaking down barriers on every level and knowing that we are more than just the limited definitions that we've been using to describe ourselves for so long.
With the Earth splitting, will ETs exist on both Earths?
No. And it could be more than two. We're using the idea of a split into two as just a simplistic, convenient analogy. It can be splitting into dozens and dozens of different ways that the Earth can be. And again, they already exist. The splitting is just about which way are we shifting to, which versions are we shifting to that are already there. So of course, there are going to be versions on which there is open contact. There are going to be versions on which open contact will never happen. There are versions of Earth that are heaven on Earth. There are versions of Earth that are hell on Earth. There are versions of Earth that continue on and on and on and on for so very long time, generations and millennia and what have you. There are versions of Earth that have already destroyed themselves. Anything you can imagine. So it's just about what is our path here? What are we choosing? But there's an array, a range of choices of versions of Earth that are relevant for what we have chosen in this, let's say, corner of the galaxy for humans to experience. So there will definitely be some versions where there is no open contact, and there will be versions where there is.
Shoot. So if in 5 years there's no open contact, I'm going to call you, Darryl, and say, I think I missed the boat. I'm on the other Earth, man.
You're on that one.
Yeah, but there's a lot of momentum behind it though, or we probably wouldn't be having these conversations.
Right.
Humanity stop using money as a primary exchange? And will people as a whole ever live without financial worries because the money system dissolves?
Yes, I mean, I think we'll go to something like a digital kind of exchange for a while. And I I don't mean Bitcoin. I don't mean a cryptocurrency. Just a general idea that you can have the ability to get what you need, handle it all through AI and in some digital way so it's more convenient, but also safeguarded. And then eventually, as Bashar said, like in his society, it's not that you necessarily need an arbitrary medium of exchange. It can be something that's more based on the actual skills, abilities, talents of every individual, and it's based on synchronicity so that an individual that has what you need shows up exactly at the time you need it and gives it to you, as you may have exactly what they need, and you show up exactly at the right moment interacting with them to give them what they need, so that there now is just a constant flow of exchange back and forth in this sort of like gigantic internet scaled version of physical reality where everyone is just synchronistically exactly where they need to be, interacting with exactly who they need to interact with in perfect timing, sharing all the skills and abilities and substances and objects, knowledge and what have you that needs to be shared with the people that you're running into all the time. This is the way Bashar's world works. This may not happen exactly that way for us for quite a while, but we certainly are going to go through stages that will ultimately lead to something more like that. But I think at first we're going to go into something that's a more digital version of exchange that's a little more convenient, a little bit more seamless, a little bit more invisible, so that we can kind of start feeling more like it's us that is doing this. It's not really an actual piece of paper or a coin or anything like that. It's us that's doing that, and that can help train us into this new sort of more synchronistic way of having exchange. It's almost in a weird way like going backwards to trade, but everything is a trade. I have a goose and you have a cow. Okay, I need the goose, you need the cow. So it's a more modern version of that idea, but with synchronicity thrown on top of it so that it can cover anything, any commodity, any skill, any talent, any amount of knowledge, and it will permeate society in that way. But again, that's decades into the future, the way I'm describing it on his world. But for now, I think we'll come up with something that's a little bit more convenient. But cryptocurrency is something that I think gave us a little practice with that, but I don't think it's that system that we're talking about. There's something else that'll come along that'll be more convenient for everyone and not also so hard on the environment because cryptocurrency uses a lot of servers that use a lot of energy. And in some ways, it's actually kind of worse than using cash.
That synchronistic style, will that also apply to healthcare?
Everything,
Everything. Cool.
everything.
Great.
Yeah. And again, remember that the ETs probably have very advanced knowledge about technology with regard to healthcare. It's probably a lot of resonance and vibrational based medicine and things like that that can allow us to experience a lot of healing. Plus, we're making our own inroads within the next 10 to 15 years in genetics. And I think a lot of medicine is going to go in the direction of it being genetically treated so that you literally can go, okay, your cancer, it will just literally turn it off in your genes and it just goes away. So, CRISPR technology, genetic engineering, things like that, I think is going to be one of the new waves of understanding healing, along with additional ideas of vibration, frequency, and stuff like that, that I think those things will become the predominant forms in the future, more natural, more energetic versions of things, and more genetically oriented things.
So this person is asking a question, and I think this could probably be applied to whatever people are focused on as a big issue. What can I do to protect the earth and prevent our native wildlife from going extinct? Do I just try to convince myself that the problem is not there and shift to a better reality? Or should I be taking specific actions to support this? And what are they?
Well, I think that's a relatively obvious question. Get involved and take the actions that are representative of the world that you prefer to live in, because it's the actions that actually will navigate you toward that version of Earth. You can't just wish it away. You can't just ignore it. Physical reality is about taking physical action. Action is the language of physical reality. So when you are acting to support the idea of the kind of ecological environment that you prefer, planting trees and things like that, bringing back ecosystems as best as you can, uh, learning how to do that, it's those actions that actually navigate you in the direction of the version of Earth that is more sustainable.
Awesome. Yeah, we've had a lot of people also from our community reach out, very interested in your live streams. So I know you had one just recently, and you also have one, a big one in November that you had talked about in our last interview. So if you could just talk about the Echoes of Sedona live stream coming up just one more time, because everyone wants more clarification on the election comments.
Yeah, well, I do have to kind of leave that up to Bashar because he is going to explain what it is that he said and why he said it back in the Sedona transmission. And that's why it's titled Echoes of Sedona. But I'm going to leave it up to him to explain it because I'm sure he can do a better job because I don't even have full understanding of what it is that was happening there. I think the one thing that he is going to explain that I can sort of comment on, because it was unexpected, it was unusual, and it was startling that he would actually have made some sort of comment a little bit more deeply involved with our politics than he ever has been, because that's usually one of the things he has avoided over literally the course of 40 years. And so I think a lot of people were taken aback and startled and by it, surprised by it. But here's the thing, and I know he'll talk about this, but I'm just going to offer this. We're going to have open contact very soon. Do people not think the ETs are going to get involved in our politics? Of course they will. They're going to get involved in every aspect of our society. The fact that he actually checked in with someone and asked the audience if it was okay for him to say something is the closest he could come to an indication that we are getting closer to open contact. That's why he could say anything at all. And the fact that he could say anything at all is an indication that people have to realize that when ETs are presented to us openly and are involved openly with our society, they're going to be involved in every aspect of society. So people need to get used to the idea that our politics may change according to the way we interact with ETs, and they may be very willing to comment on our societal structure when they're here and help us go through whatever changes need to happen. So I take it as a sign that contact is very close, that he was actually able to say even that much at this point, because it's an indication that they're not just going to be here and stand around with their arms crossed and watch us go through the same things we've always gone through. They're going to get involved. So I think humanity has to get used to the idea that ETs are going to be involved in our politics, our sociology, our spirituality, our economics, our technology, every phase of our society. So this is what open contact, at least one aspect of it, means. It's not just all, okay, we're all just going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It's we're going to re-engineer the world in a very positive way. And that means they have to be able to comment on what's happening here. And people can't freak out about that.
Wow.
Thank you so much. This was my favorite interview that we've done. I just love this one.
Yeah. And another big thank you to the Bashar community and our community for submitting all these amazing questions. These interviews keep getting better and better. So thank you. Is there any way we can support you, Darryl? Anything you need from us?
You are doing it. sharing this information, supporting me that way. I appreciate it. Whatever anyone wants to do that is representative of following their passion is a support to me and everyone else. So thank you, community. Thank you, everyone. Thank you guys for having this outlet so that we can talk about these things and people can ponder them and absorb them at their own pace. And I appreciate it.
Thank you, Darryl.
Yeah, thank you for everybody who submitted questions, and to be continued to the next one.
Yeah. All right. We love you.
Sending love to everybody.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.